Welcome to the Butter Notes podcast with three guys who have no business listening to music, much less talking about it.
Today we're going to be diving through the Transatlantic discography, which is kind of an arduous task. It's across 5 albums. I believe it's about 8 hours worth of music, and I've listened to each of these about 3 times over the past 3 days, which comes to almost a full day of music listening. I guess for anybody who might be watching this who doesn't know anything about Transatlantic, Transatlantic's a prog supergroup that was formed in the early 2000s by 4 prog superstars. First being Roy Stolt from the Flower Kings, the second Neil Morse from Spock's Beard and the Neil Morse Band, the third Pete Trewavas from Marillion, and then Mike Portnoy from Avenged Sevenfold. It just is a preliminary thing. I just want to say all 5 of these albums are, in my view, some of the most incredible music that has ever been recorded and published. Each record is a masterpiece in its own way, and I often felt like listening through each album that whichever album I just most recently listened to was my favorite. And so when we rank these things at the end of the day, it's going to be really difficult for me to stay faithful to what I actually think is the best, because really they're honestly all on par for me, right around the same ballpark. Just really incredible music. But I guess I'll bring you guys in here if you have anything to say before we kick into the first album.
Yeah, I mean, dude, Transatlantic it's a staple. It's been a staple in my listening for a long time. It's everything I want in a symphonic prog band. Like, it's nerdy as all hell and uplifting and beautiful, and I love it.
Yeah, seconded.
Fuck, we've been listening to this stuff for a long time, A-Tone?
Yeah. Did you hear it first?
I don't remember.
You may have. No, I actually, there used to be this XM radio station that would play prog rock. They discontinued it in 2008, but my dad used to listen to it all the time, and he would tell me about Transatlantic from that thing. And he didn't know any modern prog at the time, so I think he heard it. And then I kind of made the connection once I started getting into Dream Theater. That's when I discovered Transatlantic.
Right. Yeah, I figured it was a Portnoy connection in retrospect, because I got into this band, around the same time that I was at the height of my Dream Theater fangirldom, which I say as if I've as if I'm not still in my Dream Theater fangirldom.
See our previous episode.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I mean, shit. What, junior year of high school we got into this stuff?
Uh-huh.
Pretty much right when the Whirlwind came out.
Yeah. 09.
Yeah, that was serendipitous. I had also been into...
we fucking got to see on tour, man. God damn, that was an amazing show.
Oh yeah, we'll definitely talk about that shit.
I'm late to the party when it comes to Transatlantic, so I didn't really start listening to them until my sophomore, junior year of college, and it was right around the time that Kaleidoscope had come out in 2014. So I'm real late to the party on this, but so I don't have the history with this group that you guys do, but it hasn't made the experience any less rewarding going through the discography, because there's no bad time to get into Transatlantic if you've never listened to them, and you have the stomach for this sort of long form progressive rock.
I was a pretty big fan of Spock's Beard, too, before I'd ever gotten into Transatlantic, especially 5. I remember my dad, when I was pretty young, got the CD for 5, and we listened to that a lot. And I think I got you into it probably early high school, too, Jimbo.
I don't remember getting too deep into Spock's Beard until a bit later, actually. I know I'd heard 5, it must have been through you, but I wasn't a big Spock's Beard fan going into this.
I remember in early college, which was way after we'd gotten into Transatlantic, but I remember you were really hardcore into the light in early college.
Oh yeah, I remember that too.
Yeah, so let's jump into the first record.
Yeah, SMPT, which is named because of some recording studio jargon, and because each letter represents first letter of each band member's last name, I think, right?
Yeah, and then the E comes from Chihuahuas. They like stylize it with like the colon and then the subscript or the lowercase e or whatever.
Right. So.
Yeah, this was my entry point into the group. I don't know about you guys.
Me too.
What was yeah. So,
yeah, me too.
I had never heard anything much like it. I mean, you start with All the Above, which maybe remains to this day my favorite track across all the albums, which might sound like a bit of a letdown because it's the first track, and if it's your favorite track on the first track of the first album, it sounds like everything's downhill. But in all reality, that's generally not the way I consume Transatlantic albums. It's a more holistic effort across the entire album. But starting that with a 30-minute long track, which was just completely unheard of to me when I first started listening to this group. Yeah, just the song lengths are obviously the thing that's going to stand out to someone who's just starting to listen to this, I think.
Yeah, I remember when I first heard All the Above, I was like, holy shit, dude, it's 30 minutes long.
Yeah.
Like that, the novelty was very much,
and then
was very, very impressive to me at the time. And of course, what's cool about Transatlantic is that, like, yeah, they do these 30-minute songs, but they're actually worth listening to for 30 full minutes. Like, it's not just a novelty. They're actually really good at writing that kind of long form.
Yeah, there's no part of it that you really want to cut out or say they could have trimmed that arc. I mean, maybe, but like, there are going to be people who can't stomach the music, but for prog rock geeks, no, there's no part of it that I feel like should be trimmed out. Everything's perfectly placed. The way they revisit themes throughout the long tracks and across the longer albums, the more start to finish kinds of albums, is important, and everything has its proper place and kind of leads up to a crescendo, and that's definitely the case on All the Above. That's such a great track. The opening riff is so catchy. I don't know. It's just that track is just it's a complete magical ride from start to finish.
I love the line.
Yeah, that song took real quick. That song took hold of me, man. When I first heard it, I was just listening to it all the time. Just all the time.
I love Neil's lyric where he says, "Don't be with that skank." I really love it when it's not even really a profanity, but Neil Morse of today would probably consider it a profanity, and I really love hearing those couple of times. Like,
I do too.
Before he
like
went
when
really
he says,
Christian.
"Fuck you" in the water.
Oh yeah, that's the classic. That's the classic.
That's the classic. Thing,
He has like this little blurb for the liner notes on the vinyl for the reissue of The Light, where he like apologizes for anyone who was offended by that language. But at least he didn't want to censor it or anything.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think he had undergone his full, what do we call it, spiritual transformation at that point, and maybe he was seeking.
Oh, it's
not till after Bridge Across Forever.
Yeah.
Those were in the liner notes for the reissue of The Light, and it was from like 2015. The notes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is strange knowing Neil Morse now. I guess for anyone who wouldn't know, I guess after Bridge Across Forever, the second album, he went on a extended hiatus and kind of left Spock's Beard, left Transatlantic, and then rebranded himself as a Christian prog rock artist, and started doing the Neil Morse band and Morse and all of that stuff. And Mike Portnoy stuck with him and recorded with him and went on tour with him and all of that, because we were talking about before we started, Mike Portnoy is a complete maniac, and I don't know how he has that much energy to be that productive. But I think after that point they decided that they couldn't continue to do Transatlantic without Neil Morse. So there's a sort of a different approach to the music you'll see in these first two albums than maybe what you'd see from the Whirlwind and on. At least from Neil Morse. But that being said, I've done some reading of this, and I actually didn't realize it. Maybe I realized it subconsciously, and I've said before, Neil is probably, if I had to pick my favorite contributor, I mean, they all have their place, and they're all really on par, and they're all equally contributing. But I really love Neil's influence on these records, and especially on this first one. And I think one of the common complaints of this album was that this album was, I guess, molded too much in the style of Morse's other projects, and that he kind of took over with his vocal style. It was much more key and synth heavy than some of the other ones, and that was a common complaint. And they tried to restructure it going into and collaborate differently heading into different releases. And I kind of agree with that, because Neil really is kind of the star of the first album, I would say. which is not a complaint from me at all. But yeah, I don't know if you guys had read that or if you feel the same way about that. I think in general they're all pretty equal, like co-contributors, but I can understand what people are saying on this first one.
It's true for every track except for it's very true for every track except for My New World. They have like which is a major track on the album. It's a 17-minute track, and that's a total Roy Stolt track, like through and through a Roy Stolt track.
Great guitar
and is also by far my favorite on the album. My New World is definitely my favorite.
Wow.
But all of the above, I think, it's a Neil Morse song. It really is. It has some really great guitar playing. I mean, it has great musicianship from the other three dudes, but it's a Neil Morse song for the most part.
I think so,
in my opinion.
But it's still very well balanced. So, don't ever get the impression that it's just all Neil Morse doing his thing. But I think it's stylistically a characteristic Neil Morse contribution. And then of course there's this cover, Procol Harum cover at the end of the album, In Held 'Twas in I think is the name of the track.
That was a weird fallopian slip you just had, man.
What did I say?
You said Procol Harum.
Procol Harum.
Look, Boko Haram.
Yeah.
Isn't that what it's called? Procol Harum?
Procol Harum.
Procol Harum.
Okay. I just pronounced it incorrectly. That wasn't a fallopian slip.
It sounded like some jihadist group.
Yeah, that's what I thought too.
Yeah.
It does, I guess. I should know how to pronounce the word.
Jihadists.
I wasn't thinking about that.
English prog rock jihadists. That's awesome.
I just didn't know how to pronounce the word. My bad.
Yes,
Procol
so they do the Procol Harum cover on there. In Held 'Twas I.
I had no idea what you were talking about.
The In Held 'Twas an I cover should have been a bonus track. I don't really listen to it very often.
I totally agree. I pretty much skip it when I listen to that album.
Are you serious?
It's cool that they do it, but it's not worth a 20-minute slot.
And I'm not a very big Procol Harum fan. I think they're all right.
I'm not either. Yeah. I'm with Tone.
I think
100%.
they absolutely slap the hell out of that track. It is so good. I love that it's bookended with all the above. Yeah, I don't know. I really like that. I mean, and they have a kind of tradition after this album of releasing bonus discs with a bunch of covers.
Yes.
So they could have gotten away with doing that, but I would have just tagged it on at the end and listened to it. I absolutely love that cover.
God, speaking of which, man, some of those covers are absolutely banging.
Yeah. Soul Sacrifice is awesome.
Some of those, I was just gonna say Soul Sacrifice, man. They slay that fucking song. Royna just destroys it. He plays the piss out of that song.
Yeah. Yeah, Royna doing Santana. Those are definitely Santana is like very obviously a big influence on Royna's playing, and it was cool to see him pay tribute on there. It's a fucking awesome cover.
What's the track from Nursery Crime they do?
Return of the Giant Hogweed.
That's right. Yeah, that's an excellent cover.
Yeah, they played that well too.
And then Neil and Royna went on to do that with Steve Hackett on Genesis Revisited 2.
Yes.
Which is a fucking awesome version of it as well.
Dude, this just a quick aside. That is a sick album. That Genesis Revisited 2.
Oh yeah, like
I was really Mike Ockerfeldt on Supper's Ready.
I was super skeptical of that album because Genesis Revisited 1 was not very good in my opinion, and the idea of like re-recording old songs is something I'm like skeptical of. But yeah, Genesis Revisited 2 was awesome. I don't think Portnoy shows up on it, but Neil and Royna do.
I don't remember.
Yeah, that might be another $40 I spend for a nice vinyl. They have it. They have like a nice deluxe edition of it. Yeah, would definitely not mind spending money on that.
On Genesis Revisited 2?
Oh yeah.
Nice.
That'd be sweet.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I mean, SMPT. When did it come out? 99?
2000.
2000. Okay, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to think of the other members in their own contexts. Dream Theater wasn't gigantic at that point, were they?
Yeah, they just come out with Metropolis.
Yeah.
Was Metropolis gigantic?
Well, they had put... Metropolis was pretty big. I mean, Images and Words was a pretty big deal back in the early 90s. So they definitely had some clout. I mean, they're not world-renowned or anything like that at this point. But they've been doing that, and then the Liquid Tension stuff came out just before all this. The first one at least. I don't know if the second one did as well. I can't put the date on that one.
I think it's. I think the second one came out in '99.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Mike Portnoy is a complete maniac. I mean, that's 3 really fucking good albums in the span of a year that he was part of. Yeah, and then of course Pete was doing his Marillion thing and has always been doing his Marillion thing since forever, right?
Yeah, Marillion.com had just come out in '99, so that is the most. That's the most recent Marillion album when SMPT comes out.
Yep.
Which the 2 albums could not be more different sides of progressive rock music, so that's really cool that Pete played on both of them.
Mm-hmm.
I think the last Flower Kings was Stardust We Are.
No, it's Flower Power.
Oh, that's right.
But Space Revolver also came out in 2000, so I don't know if it was before or after this.
Yes. And what about Spock's?
5 came out in 2000.
Gotcha.
This is a prolific year for all these dudes.
Yeah, for real.
No shit.
And they just they got away for a little bit to do this side project and release a little album. Yeah, it's remarkable. I don't know how they managed to do it. This album is as excellent a debut as I think you will find. Yeah, it's just really good.
Yeah, SMPT fucks. Faux show. But moving right along to Bridge Across Forever, which I think is even an improvement.
I agree.
Yeah. Hinting at what my future rankings here.
Yeah, I don't know if it's... I mean, I don't know if I'd say it's much of an improvement. I really think it's sustained excellence. It's true they've really come into their own. This album is structured in a similar way, but it's really, there's 2 really long tracks bookending it, just like SMPT, and then there's, I guess, like...
Don't write off Sweet Charlotte Pike, son.
Sweet Charlotte Pike, of course, yeah, that's the second track, and then there's that 5-minute track that
the title track, Bridge Across Forever.
Yeah.
The Neil ballad.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Which is a nice little ballad.
Although
it's nice for the pacing.
We All Need Some Light is in my opinion, a far superior Neil ballad to Bridge Across Forever. In my opinion, We All Need Some Light is the classic Neil ballad. That's the classic Neil Morse ballad.
I don't know, champ. I might disagree there.
I definitely think We All Need Some Light is the classic Neil Morse ballad across his entire catalog. June from Spock Spirit is also an amazing Neil Morse ballad. But I think that it's got to go to We All Need Some Light.
Hotly contested. I'm not sure.
Yeah,
it could go either way. It really could go either way.
Yeah, that's something. When we're talking about music this high level, it's really. I mean, we're nitpicking at a certain point. That's kind of what I felt with all these albums. It's like just trying to nitpick and comparing them to each other. But yeah, I mean, they really like. I don't know. Maybe for any musician who comes out with an excellent debut, it's met with high critical praise and whatever, it'd be easy for them to fall off. But at the very least, if we disagree that it's an improvement, at the very least, it doesn't fall off in any significant way.
Oh God, no. I mean, I think I have both as 5s.
Yeah, I mean they are. Yeah, for sure. I don't know. This one's got a different kind of energy to it. I mentioned in the chat earlier in the week that little, I don't know, that almost percussive thing that Neil does a few times in the Duel with the Devil. It's like da 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 da.
Yeah.
Oh, I know it's just so
kind of like the
rich,
strings, sort of like the synth strings.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just Yeah.
I'll just say it. Duel with the Devil. That's probably my favorite of the whole Transatlantic discog.
It's up there. Yeah.
That doesn't necessarily foreshadow my rankings in terms of the albums, but Duel with the Devil is my fave for the tunes for sure. It's got all the ingredients. There's like some of the moments on that song. I've heard it 500 times and it still gets me every time.
Yeah, especially like that crescendo during Werner's vocal when it kicks in.
Oh yeah, man.
Yeah.
When they pick up the intensity, holy shit! It slays me, man. And then the Royna solo too. That solo he trades with the sax on, dude.
One of his best guitar solos.
It's one of his best, absolutely. Might be my favorite of all of them.
Well, then the saxophone is like just the fact that it's on there, just juxtaposed with that, it's so good.
So speaking of which, I looked this up earlier. That I can't find anything else that saxophone player did.
He might have just been some
studio ace.
Yeah.
Yeah, just some studio ace that they hired to come in and play.
What's his? Do you know his name right offhand?
I think his last name is Shears.
They mentioned. I was reading an interview before we started, Neil and Royna. And they mentioned that when they're playing live, they have some helper guys. They named them Ted and Daniel. I don't know if that's the name, but I don't know. I would be interesting to see if it was them. They have a lot of people in their camp that are musically inclined as well, and they recruit for help during live shows and things. So it wouldn't surprise me if they just had a sax player on hand randomly and just said, "Hey, can you play this part real quick?"
During the Whirlwind tour, Daniel Gildenlau was like a fifth member for all the shows, and then during the Kaleidoscope tour, Ted Leonard was a fifth member for all the shows.
Yeah, well, it's good you mentioned that. I wasn't sure if the Daniel they were referring to is Daniel Gildenlau or...
yeah, it's Gildenlau.
So, yeah.
And Ted Leonard was the one they did for the subsequent tour.
Okay. Yeah. They didn't give last names, so I wasn't sure. But yeah, I don't know who did the saxophone. Just could have been anybody. They got a bunch of people on hand. And then there's that fusion breakdown at the end.
Of Duel with the Devil?
Yeah, right? It, like leads into Sweet Charlotte Pike.
I'm not sure what you're talking about.
I'm pretty sure.
I wouldn't think of it as fusion.
Well, not fusion. Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's jazzy. It's real jazzy.
I think you're thinking more about the intro of Sweet Charlotte Pike.
Yeah.
Well, so
they're jamming.
Well, yeah, but there's so I was reading the way they structured it. There's like a 2 minute track, and it's like an interlude that leads into. It's not really part of either song. I think is how they structured it.
I think if I'm hearing what I think you're talking about, then I think it's the beginning of Sweet Charlotte Pike.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's how they have it structured, but I think they wrote it as just a separate thing and smacked it in between the two of them. Yeah, it's real wanky, but it's so good to listen to. It's really pleasant to the ears.
I gotta throw one more. One other favorite part of mine from Duel with the Devil is it's after the choir section. You know what I'm talking about?
Mm-hmm.
And they're building it up. It's this long repetitive stretch, and then Neil just slams on this high note on the synth. You know what I'm talking about? And it's like sort of in the background of the mix at the top of this crescendo, and he starts doing his falsetto vocals. It's fucking it's perfection, man.
So good.
It's absolute perfection. Neil is a killer with the falsetto vocals, dude.
Yeah, Neil is an amazing singer. I think his voice takes some getting used to. But once you get used to it, he's an amazing singer.
Absolutely.
I like his vocal sound more than Royna, just naturally. I don't know what it is. I'm weird.
I disagree.
Royna,
but that's totally subjective.
Yeah.
But I disagrey.
Royna, I think, is like I don't know. He's more of like a home style kind of singer, I think. Whereas Neil is really a powerhouse. Neil is very much the lead singer, if that makes sense.
The best way to think of Neil Morse is within the context of musical theater and like Broadway. He's written musicals, so that's not that much of a stretch. Yeah. That's the kind of performer, composer, and singer that Neil Morse is. And you have to accept that. You have to accept that. But once you do, then it's fucking great.
Well, the other influence I see, maybe not on these earlier ones as much. Maybe always had it in him. I don't know. But like singing in a church choir, because there is a lot of Christian rock influence on the Whirlwind, and maybe not as much on Kaleidoscope, but definitely on the Absolute Universe, and definitely on the abridged version of the Absolute Universe. There's a ton of Christian rock inspired like progressive, and it's really good. I mean, that style he absolutely kills that style. And yeah, not that that kind of Christian rock is my favorite kind of music to listen to or anything. I don't listen to really any of it, but I've been exposed to it before, and it's characteristically that. And maybe that's
Neil Morse is contemporary Christian music. Like, it is that. It's progressive rock, but it's also contemporary Christian music. When you go to see Neil Morse, which I've seen Neil Morse, I'm not going to try to count it. I've probably seen Neil Morse 7 times, not even counting the times I've seen him with Transatlantic. And, like, the crowd at a Neil Morse show is half prog rock nerds and half CCM young life dorks. Like it is that music. Totally.
Yeah.
That's exact. I only saw him the once on a solo tour, on a Neil Morse band tour, but that was exactly the composition of the audience.
It's all over. What is it? The Similitude of a Dream and The Great Adventure. That stuff it's all over those albums too. Yeah, it's straightforwardly Christian rock, which, yeah, I have no judgments there for me. He absolutely kills the style. And it adds some flavor to it, I think. Roina has these, and I really like Roina's vocal style. They're very comfy. The song I'm thinking of right now just comes to mind is Morning News from the most recent Flower Kings record. It's like a really comfy track.
Mm-hmm. That's a good song. That's one of the shortest songs.
It's nice. Yeah, Roina kind of brings you down with his vocals, I think, and Neil kind of lifts you up with them. He's got a more intense style, I think. I think Neil's voice. This is probably subjective, but Neil's voice carries maybe more passion or emotion, like at the higher. I don't know this. I mean, it's like
he's just a more intense performer. I mean,
yeah. Not that Roina has no emotion to his.
Not to say that Roina doesn't have intensity or emotional drive in his performance either, but it's a different kind. I think Anthony, you hit the nail on the head with the Broadway connection.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Within the context of Transatlantic, I'd agree with what Jacob said about the two of them. But if you take in like Roina's entire oeuvre, like with the Flower Kings, like there's some extremely emotional vocal performances in the Flower Kings.
Oh yeah, I meant to be clear, I just meant Transatlantic. Yeah. Yeah, Roina has a kind of calming presence, I think, on most of Transatlantic, and Neil kind of ramps it up, I think. And the other members kind of ramp it up too. I think Roina kind of brings you back down a lot of times, which is really nice, a nice contrast to have in some of these tracks. Because you can get up in the clouds with this stuff. I mean, the blimp on their covers is a perfect representation of what this music is. I was just thinking, like, yeah, you're in a blimp or an airplane or something, looking out across a vast expanse, like a valley or something, mountains on both sides, clouds off in the distance, rivers running below. Very peaceful, happy, kind of big, like broad music, I think. And yeah, I don't know what else to say about it. It's so good.
Sweet Charlotte Pike is really good and overlooked, in my opinion.
I love that track.
They're having just a really good time on there. It's basically like it's a tribute to like the Beatles and also like sort of like Crosby, Stills and Nash, that kind of music. And it's really cool to see them like dork out over that kind of stuff, because normally they're dorking out over progressive rock at the same time period.
The Waz Up reference is a little dated.
Yeah.
Waz Up? Yeah.
It didn't age too well, in my opinion, but but I bet it was fun when they recorded it.
It's still fun.
It's really still fun. Like it's cool. Like, I don't know. Like it's very organically fun,
yes.
Which makes it hard not to like. There's nothing artificial about it.
Yeah.
I agree. I totally agree.
Yeah, they're just messing around in the studio. Yeah, so I guess with these,
there's some ripping sections of that song, actually.
Oh yeah,
it's really good. Yeah, it shouldn't be overlooked. Yeah, I guess with these two albums, I'd seen multiple people say this online, that this is, speaking in superlatives, I guess you can't escape it now, but some of the best music to be released since the 70s, at least on the progressive side of things. How do we feel about that claim for these first two albums?
That reeks of like the boomer attitude that there hasn't been any good music made since the 70s.
Well, you could take it that way.
I obviously I love Transatlantic, but there's plenty of good shit that came out in the 80s and 90s.
I'm sure that's what motivates that claim.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
I mean, we could just take it on its own terms. And I mean, is this some of the best music to come out since the 70s? Just think about it.
I don't know why we would add the caveat since the 70s.
Well, just because that's the advent of progressive rock.
I'd say it's some of the best symphonic progressive rock music to come out since the 70s. But that's just a genre.
Yeah.
I'm not going to place that genre above others, which that comment implies that genre should be placed above others.
That's probably what they were saying.
Exactly.
But yeah, I mean, no, I was just thinking we could probably understand that question in its own terms. Like, I don't know, this far into prog rock's life, like, do those albums hold up to the progression of progressive rock? And I think they do. Yeah, I don't know. It's really good. And I mean, there's such a huge backlog at this point, so comparing it to all of that's a crazy task to do. But if it were true, it'd be pretty remarkable that something like that could come out in the 2000s. That's basically all. That's how I wanted to interpret the question.
Yeah, I mean, we're getting into the prog as a genre versus prog as a philosophy thing here, and I don't know. On the other hand, there are people out there who have talked shit about bands like Transatlantic for hearkening back to classic 70s symphonic prog like this.
Yeah.
And I think that's horseshit. One, because nobody is. I'm not going to add a moral imperative that people write music in a certain way to try and keep things going. I think that's a stupid way to look at your own composition. But two, there's plenty of modern aspects to this music. There's plenty of stuff that wouldn't have gotten written in the 1970s that they do on the Transatlantic records.
Yeah, it's progressive in both senses you just introduced. I think it's firmly in the symphonic prog genre, and it's progressive in the philosophical sense of moving a genre forward or something like that. I mean, this is not derivative music, I don't think. And if anything, there's not much else out there that to me sounds exactly like Transatlantic. I think they have their own unique sounds. It's something I don't know. I hear things like that's characteristically a Transatlantic thing. So, I would not agree with the claim that they're derivative. Or of course they have influences.
Well,
but.
See, look, I think it is derivative, and I don't think that's a problem.
It's the same genre, but it being the same genre doesn't mean it's derivative.
Yeah,
like,
I don't think it's
you could pick some random music genre, like you could say, like, I don't know, like black metal. You could be like, here's a black metal band from the 90s, and here's a black metal band from the 2000s, and just because one is subsequent to the other one, and it's the same genre, doesn't mean it's derivative. It's just, like, people have this weird double standard when it comes to progressive rock in that regard.
Right, that's kind of what I mean. I don't know. I'm not sure if that's I'm not sure about that distinction there. I think that means it is derivative to some extent, but that's fine.
Well, that's a very broad definition of derivative in a way that I don't think.
What do we mean by that?
And it's big, like the way that derivative is being used by critics of Transatlantic is a sharper and narrower definition of the term than what you're saying.
It's like
yes, it is. Yeah. Yes, they're using it to be derogatory. Yeah.
Yes, it's like that kind of derivativeness is like Platonic mimesis, where it's just like copying or imitation or something like that, versus it just being influenced by something. And I think people confuse those two things. And to me, this stuff has obvious influences, and that is mediated by the members' other groups. I mean, Dream Theater's influenced by Metallica and Rush, and they have all of their influences. But
yeah, well, I mean, let's just talk about Portnoy, man. Portnoy is a very modern drummer at the time, and that has a huge influence on the overall production and sound of Transatlantic.
Yeah, but he's influenced by Neil Peart, but Portnoy's his own character, his own drummer, and has crafted his own sound, I think. So yeah, I don't think this is derivative in the derogatory sense. I don't think they just went back. They opened up the folios and looked back to the 70s and go, yeah, let's just do what they did and then write it or something like that. No.
I don't feel that way either.
No, I just think they were inspired or influenced by earlier groups. As if you can't be. Like, that's...
Yeah.
I don't know. There's very few works that are completely
original. They wrote
original.
fucking music, man.
Yeah.
They wrote the fucking music in their heads. That's what they did.
Yeah.
And it's very good.
Yeah.
Let's just listen to it and try and enjoy it.
Yeah, exactly. Definitely agree.
Or not. If you don't like it, fine. But don't add this moral dimension to it. I don't know. I hate that moralizing.
Yeah, I agree.
Yes.
Definitely agree.
Thirded. Are we going to talk about the Big Kahuna?
Yeah, let's talk about the Big Kahuna. Well, wait a minute. We skipped Stranger in Your Soul.
We did see Stranger in Your Soul.
We can't not talk about Stranger in Your Soul. Excellent track. Neil Morse says that's his favorite of this stuff.
That tracks.
I could see that.
It's his favorite of the epics, as he says.
It is not my favorite of the epics. In fact, I would, and again, this is all like some of my favorite music, so I'm not talking shit. It would probably be my least favorite of the epics from the first 3 albums.
I would agree.
I think I'm with that. Yeah.
Yeah, I would agree.
It's not as good as Still with the Devil.
But that being said, it fucks.
Oh, it's really good.
Especially the end. Yeah. It's a classic Neil Morse, like uber melodramatic crescendo, like outro with the vocals. And
there's that ripping synth.
And then it gets quiet, and then it flies back up, like just classic Neil Morse.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Well, and there's that one point. I think it's right about the middle of the track where they bring back that main melody from the beginning, and Neil takes it up an octave with that huge sawtooth synth lead tone.
Yeah.
And it's badass. It's classic Transatlantic.
Yeah, and that statement in itself right there, classic Transatlantic. There you go. It's unique.
It is.
Yes, without a doubt.
Without a doubt. You're not listening to this in an intelligent way if you say that it isn't. Doesn't even mean that you have to like it, but if you're actually listening to the music smartly, then you can't say that it is not unique.
Yep.
Indeed. All right, now we can move on to the Big Kahuna. So fast forward, 7 years?
Just about, yeah.
Yeah, 7 years in a spiritual transformation. We get the Whirlwind in 2009.
What a way to come back. This album is structured very differently than the first two.
Yeah, the Whirlwind holds a very, very special place in my heart.
Yeah, the Whirlwind is an album that is easily top 10 of all time for me. And I go back to it, I would say probably, it was probably 10 years ago, like 2011 or so, after I'd been listening to the album for a couple of years, that it like firmly got into my top 10 of all time. And like since over the past decade, I've revisited it occasionally, like always thinking that it would like have faded, but it never does.
Yeah.
Yeah, this one, man, it's just got all the ingredients. I say that a lot, but it's perfect.
It does, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's structured very differently. We don't get the separate track, big prog epic, but the whole thing is a prog epic. It's a 77-minute long prog epic, which is, I guess a different direction. I mean, that is again is a characteristic thing of them, but yeah, this is 77 minutes broken down into various tracks, and you know, as you do in these kinds of albums, I guess, lay down various themes and overtures and revisit them when needed. And this is something Anthony and I were talking about before, and you know, for this album and then also in the last album, they just know when to reintroduce those themes without, you know, beating the death out of it. So like I don't know, I'm not going to bring up the album because I feel like we should go an episode without talking about an album, but there's a certain album that's very long that we've all listened to and don't like very much, and they have themes and overtures, and they just ham-fist them into every fiber of the album, and it just wears them out. And
yeah, Altered State by Tesseract.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly. Yeah, that one. That album, it's just it's drone and tiresome and tedious, and you just don't want to listen to it. It just makes the album feel longer. But this album, they have a really great way of introducing these musical ideas and then taking you for a ride beyond those, and then they just bring you back and remind you, like, this is what we did before, and it kind of, I don't know, it kind of cycles you like that through the album, and it is done to perfection on this album. They just seem to always find the right spot. and it just builds right back into it. And yeah, nothing's out of place. And as you might expect in a 77-minute long track, it doesn't really wander off and do all the. There's no sort of weird parts in the middle where they're going off and doing this weird instrumental break or something like that. It all just perfectly flows from start to finish, and that is just completely remarkable to me. They were able to sustain that for over an hour. Because I doubt it was. I highly, highly doubt it was recorded in one take. So they had to record this in separate takes and then mix and match stuff. And yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, cool. I mean, there are cuts, like the beginning of the transition from The Wind Blew Them All Away into On the Prowl. There's a cut. Although I guess Pete T, he's playing through it. He plays through that transition more or less.
Yeah, I think it's all continuous to some extent.
What about between Evermore and Rose-Colored Glasses?
I was about to say. I
think there's a cut there too.
That's a cut.
There is.
Mind you, it's an ambiguous cut. It's not a dead end.
No.
Like it fades, but it is a cut.
Well, in the beginning of the next track perfectly matches what happened. It's for all intents and purposes a continuous effort across the whole thing.
I agree. I think, long story short, I definitely think you can look at this as one song. I know they do.
Yeah.
I think that's fine.
One of the genius things about the Whirlwind is that I think it works perfectly equally well as either one long piece or 12 tracks. Like, you can view it either way, and it's as good either way. Like, somehow it is both 100%, which is one of the many things that's genius about it, I think.
Yeah. Aptly put, yeah.
Portnoy, I think it's obviously hard, but I think it's almost no question that Portnoy is if you have to pick a star of the album, it's Portnoy. It's some of the best drumming ever put to tape.
Yeah, it's so funny. I remember having this conversation with friends where they'd say what's your favorite Portnoy drumming, and it's like, oh, the Whirlwind without a doubt.
Without question.
It's not even close. Yeah, it's not even close. He's perfect on this album.
Yeah,
he's so versatile. He's all over the spectrum in terms of composition and style. Portnoy takes some risks too, man. Like, some of the double bass shit he does on this album is sort of out of place for symphonic prog. I mean, he does that all through the Transatlantic discography, but it shines in particular on Whirlwind.
He beats the hell out of those double basses, man. It's really good.
Dude.
Yeah,
like in the overture.
Yeah.
And it is it really happening? The second half of Is It Really Happening, where it builds and builds and builds and builds. Oh, that's some of the best music I have ever heard.
I love that.
That honestly, the instrumental half, the second half of Is It Really Happening, I think is the highlight of this album for me. And this is one of my all-time favorite albums. So it would either be the highlight of this album for me would either be the second half of Is It Really Happening, or the first 2 or 3 minutes, the instrumental intro of On the Prowl. That's also some of my favorite music ever.
Yeah, I love On the Prowl, man.
Big Pete doing that groove on the bass, dude.
Yeah, he slays, dude. The guitar solo in Rose-Colored Glasses is an all-time favorite of mine.
Yeah.
The outro, the closer is incredible too, man. Dancing
with Eternal Glory.
Oof.
Royna has some screaming solos on this.
Yeah.
I mean, he just they'll be going to some instrumental thing, and it'll just seamlessly transition into one of, and he screaming.
I listen to Dancing with Eternal Glory and feel as though I'm dancing with Eternal Glory. Like, my outlook on life improves by the end of that track.
Yeah, like if there's anything that makes you want to become a non-denominational Christian, then Dancing with Eternal Glory will get you there.
No shit.
I described. Hey, I was listening to, and we'll get to this, but I was listening to Absolute Universe earlier, and when I first heard it earlier this year, I thought, I felt that I heard it before, that it wasn't bad. I was just like, but then it clicked, and I could just feel it. And I said it was a deep. I described it as a deep spiritual cleansing. So when this stuff really hits you, if you're skeptical at first, and it'll finally hit you if you give it a chance. And once you do, you feel it. Yeah, you feel it. It's really good.
Totally agreed. Big time agreed. What are the other best moments on this track? There's some sick Roina solos in Evermore.
Evermore, yeah. The main keyboard riff in Evermore is utterly beautiful and catchy. Neil's vocals on Wind Blew Them All Away. It's one of his best vocal performances.
I was just going to say that. That high note he hits there at the end, on the line, the wind blew them all away.
Oh, yeah, especially at the end. Yeah.
Crazy.
None of us can sing, really. So we could never actually sing this stuff. If any of us can sing, James can sing.
Speak for
but
yourself.
I don't think he could sing The Wind Blew Them All Away.
Fuck no.
Set Us Free is triumphant as fuck. Like,
yes.
even Portnoy's vocals on Portnoy takes a verse on Set Us Free, and it's good. It's like one of, not to talk shit on Portnoy, because I've given him incredibly high praise here. So not to talk shit on Portnoy, but he's not that good of a singer. And they let him sing way too often. But his verse on Set Us Free is really good.
Yeah. Still not as good as what he does in The Dark Eternal Night, but we'll leave that for another time.
Or A Nightmare to Remember.
Or A Nightmare to Remember.
That is the classic Portnoy vocal performance. Nightmare to Remember.
Oh boy. Yeah, this is probably my favorite album.
Which Black Clouds came out the same year as The Whirlwind. How fucked up is that?
Yeah, man. Wow, it totally did.
That's like Portnoy's worst
two
album.
Albums too.
It's Portnoy's worst album. Came out the same year as his best album. That's really weird to me. In my opinion, it's his worst.
Well, his best album came out the next year with Nightmare by Avenged Sevenfold. So he, up to that point, you're correct.
Portnoy, if it's not obvious, we love you, buddy.
Oh yeah.
I said
like
it's
Nightmare
the best
by
drumming of
Avenged
all time.
Sevenfold. I think I go back with that album. I was so stoked when he was asked to be in Avenged Sevenfold.
It's some of the best drumming of all time on The Whirlwind. I already said that. It's like, could not be more high praise. So don't worry.
I agree.
This is also my favorite album lyrically of all of them, I would say.
Probably mine too.
It's conceptual, so it makes sense.
Yeah.
It's like a person going through life, and the whirlwind symbolizes the tumultuous, I don't know, the obstacles they face or something like that. It's kind of stock, but it's I think it's some of the best.
I love the lyrics on A Man Can Feel.
Great Roina lyrics. Classic Roina lyrics.
Yeah, that's some real shit. That's some real shit for sure.
Though I'm gonna hate to disappoint you guys about this later, but we'll get there.
Anthony, do you remember when Agents of Mercy played A Man Can Feel?
Yeah, they
at
did.
Orion Sound Studios in Baltimore.
Yep.
That was pretty fucking cool.
Yeah, Roina was calling himself Pale Rider for a while on his Facebook profile.
Yeah, that was his Facebook name.
Yeah.
It was Pale Rider. That's awesome.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, and I mean, so we also got to see the Whirlwind on the World Tour.
Probably still my all-time favorite concert.
Really? Yeah, it's up there. It's one of my favorites for sure.
And we were right by Portnoy. Like, Portnoy was perpendicular to the audience. He was facing sideways, which I like. I like it when they set up drummers like that on stage, because you could see the shit they're doing better. Most jazz bands do that.
Yep.
We were right by Portnoy. Like, we were at the front. We were just a matter of feet away.
We were on the barricade, man.
And we just watched him play.
We were on the barricade.
We watched him play all of that shit. We watched him play all the Whirlwind. We watched him do... What was the set list? I can probably just remember it off the top of my head.
Well, they played the Whirlwind,
then
they took a break. Then they played All of the Above, Duel with the Devil, and Stranger in Your Soul, and Bridge Across Forever.
Yeah, no, they did... They did the Whirlwind.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
It was a 3-hour show. Yeah.
Jesus.
They did the Whirlwind. There was an intermission, and then they did Stranger in Your Soul, and then they did Duel with the Devil and All of the Above, and then there was another intermission, and then Neil did like a We All Need Some Light, Bridge Across Forever medley, and then they did Stranger in Your Soul.
Yep.
It was probably over 3 hours, to be honest.
That was an absolutely transcendent experience. I can't believe how fucking lucky we are that we got to go see that tour, man.
Yeah,
well, it also shows...
this band has only toured like 4 times.
That was in Philly, right?
Yeah, Philly at Theater of the Living Arts.
Theater of the Living Arts.
Wow.
Shout out. That was an awesome venue too.
Hell yeah.
and that's a world tour, so they're doing that every night. So that just, I mean, you have to love what you're doing to be able to put yourself through something. I mean, money talks, I guess, but like, yeah, you gotta, I gotta imagine that. I know you just hear musicians talk about being on the road and all of that, and like to be able to do that every single night, I think shows the passion that went into making these albums.
I have a Portnoy stick from that show.
You do?
Shit.
Yeah, I totally do. Yeah.
Have you put that up on your wall before? Because I feel like I would have seen it.
It used to be. I mean, a long time ago. I have it though. I mean, I'd have to dig around for it, but I know it's in one of my boxes.
Why would you have to dig around for it? That would be sitting on my. Like, what do you mean?
Yeah, we were right next to it.
I got a lot of memorabilia here, buddy. I have too much shit to display as it is, especially living with my wife. But
no comment.
Yeah, no, I've got that lying around somewhere.
That's pretty cool.
I've got a Petrucci pick too.
That's
in my guitar case.
That's really cool too.
Did you not see them on the Kaleidoscope tour?
Because I'm a fucking dork and I still have that.
I
did not.
How'd you get that? Did you talk to them?
I caught it.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Wow. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, because I was, I don't know, 16, and it still seemed worthwhile to jump up in the air to grab a drumstick.
Nice. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm gonna get Marco Miniman's drumsticks when I hide in his luggage to get on Cruise to the Edge. It's my goal.
Yeah, it was fucking awesome. Like,
yeah, that was an amazing.
If not my all-time favorite show, definitely easy top 5 all-time favorite show.
Yeah, me too.
Portnoy definitely made eye contact, I think, with all of us at 1 or 2 points throughout it. We were so close to him.
I remember specifically he made eye contact with us during the Pull Me Under line in Duel with the Devil.
Oh, did we all shout that out or something?
Yeah, it's something like that. I remember him looking over though and mouthing "Pull Me Under" at us, which obviously worked.
He was still in Dream Theater at that time.
Yeah, we would go on to see the last Portnoy Dream Theater show in North America, somewhat soon after that Transatlantic show.
Yeah, it was April 2020 that we saw Transatlantic do the Whirlwind, and then he left in, I think, September.
You mean 2010?
2010. Sorry, 2010. And then he left in September 2010.
Have we said enough about the Whirlwind?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we
I
probably
could talk
have.
about it for a while. Just random moments of it that are awesome.
Yeah, fuck, I love that shit.
Yeah.
All right, now we're going to fast forward another 5 years to Kaleidoscope in 2014.
Yeah, this one grew on me.
Me too.
This was one of the first albums I listened to. So I think I went SMPT and then this one, and then Bridge Across Forever, then Whirlwind, and then of course the one released this year last. And I still swear, James, that you introduced me to Transatlantic through this band, but I think I may have gotten some wires crossed, and that this had just come out, and you played it. You must have played something from Bridge Across Forever, and I'm just remembering Kaleidoscope coming out around that time, and like that being fresh in my mind. But things were happening around then, so I can't remember exactly. But this was one of the first, the second Transatlantic album I listened to. And at the time, I was like, yeah, it's not as good as SMPT. And then Bridge Across Forever, it was just kind of an afterthought. Didn't listen to it for a while. Listened to it again a few years ago. Kind of felt the same way about it. I listened to it 3 times in the past few days, and it grew on me really fast. It's an incredible album. The production takes a bit of a turn, I think. The sound is a bit grittier and darker in certain places, especially on the Into the Blue, the first track.
Oh, yeah.
And I think it's, I don't know, I'm willing to say it's kind of their Black Sheep record, because they take a lot of really interesting experimental risks on this album. They're making more liberal use of the mellotron at times, I think, than on previous releases. They use the sitar, I think, in the last track. All these weird vocal effects that are going on. More use of acoustic guitar than in previous releases, I think. They have some featured vocalists and things as well, so it's just a really interesting kind of experimental take on what they were doing before. And this album, I think, is a bit more, I don't know how to put it, maybe more jam based or something. I don't know. There's just parts where it's just a lot like really like technical playing that kind of sacrifices some of the characteristic melodies that we're used to on these first 3 records. But No, it's really good, and I think it's on par with the rest of them, honestly. I think it's a masterpiece in its own way.
I have always felt the same. I have always felt the same about this album. When I first heard it, I thought it was very good, pretty good to very good, not even close to the other three that came before, like not even in the stratosphere, but still very good and a really good album. And my opinion has not changed at all.
Yeah, so I listened to this one time when it came out in 2014, and the second time I ever heard it was this week.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Really?
Partly because I don't own it, and there's not an easy way to listen to this stuff if you don't own it.
Right.
But, yeah, I have been missing out. It's a fucking awesome album. It's an awesome album. I agree, Anthony. I don't think it's on the same par as the first three, but it's very, very good.
I think
there's like, yeah. I was listening to it and I was like, Into the Blue. I mean, this is classic Transatlantic.
But it's darker.
With some new twists, like those Roina vocals where he has that modulator on it.
He was obsessed with
which
that
he was
thing.
doing a lot with.
Yeah.
He was doing that a lot with Flower Kings. I'm thinking about like Banks of Eden.
Pandemonium on Banks of Eden.
Yeah. Yep. Then that Gildenlow vocal guest vocal on Into the Blue is incredible. Yeah, there were some moments that really snagged me. I've been missing out for a lot of years.
Yeah, Kaleidoscope is pretty good. When I listen to it outside of the context of the other three albums that came before, I love it, but it pales in comparison. I try to just listen to it as its own thing.
I agree.
I think it is absolutely on par with the rest, and I am going to do something controversial later with respect to some things. So stay tuned.
Uh-oh.
Stay tuned for that.
Hot take incoming.
There's a few of them incoming, but no, I think this album is incredible. It's a masterpiece in my opinion.
I already know the incredibly stupid thing that he's gonna do. It's gonna make me seethe pretty hard.
Even though you already know,
I know it will be.
You know, and you're still gonna seethe.
Do you know?
There's a reason.
No, I don't know.
There's a reason I put the caveat at the beginning that all of these are incredible pieces of music.
He's gonna rank. He's gonna rank Kaleidoscope over the Whirlwind. That's what he's gonna do.
That would be a very stupid hot take.
That's what he's gonna do.
We'll have to see.
All right. Well, I guess we'll find out.
Which is just insane.
Hey guys,
like that is so insane. But that's what he's gonna do.
We'll have to see. Yeah.
I guess we'll have to see. All right, moving right along to a very new release, actually, The Absolute Universe from 2021.
This shit slaps.
Yeah, it's really, 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 really good.
Big Pete, I think, is the star of the record with the album.
Yeah, man. How about those vocals on Solitude?
They're really good.
Yeah.
They're really good, man.
Did you hear the story about him writing the vocals and lyrics for this? They said that he randomly just like anticipated that everyone would be. He was just thinking about solitude and people being in solitude. So it's like the lyrical theme on the album about belonging to something or whatever, like online or whatever it is, and kind of revisits that. And a lot of Pete's lyrics on this album, they said it's probably just a coincidence, but just anticipated, the lockdowns and things that were going on across the world and stuff. And yeah, he absolutely kills it vocally and lyrically on this album. And then bass wise he's an absolute king. So
yeah, that intro of
there are Pete.
That intro.
There are Pete vocals all over the rest of the discography, but he shines as like a lead vocalist on a couple of parts of this one.
Yeah, and that intro to Darkness and the Light, that bass groove, might be my favorite part of the whole album, with Roina doing that solo.
Yeah, I honestly think this is I won't say my favorite Roina performance, but I think Roina is my favorite on this album.
Oh yeah, man.
Yeah.
Especially on so there are two versions of this album. Actually, there are three versions of this album. There's the Forevermore, which is I guess they call it the extended edition, but to me that seems like the original edition. Then there's the abridged version called the Breath of Life edition. And then there's the Ultimate edition, which is longer than the extended edition. So I have really only listened much to the extended edition, the Forevermore version.
Yeah.
It sort of bothers me that there are multiple. It sort of bothers me that there are multiple versions of it. Like, I just want there to be the album.
Do you all know the story behind why there's two?
Yeah, I know the story.
Yeah, I guess Neil was editing it, and he sent out an email. He was like, "Am I crazy?"
Yeah. Yes, but.
And Roina's like, "Yes, you are." Because of course Roina wanted the long version, because Roina loves incredibly long shit no matter what.
Well, he said he wanted but he said he just liked his guitar work so much, and
there's a lot of guitar I thought that got cut out of the abridged version.
It did, yes. So
there's a bunch of keyboard shit on the abridged version too that is not on the on the Forevermore.
There's completely different vocals and lyrics in certain places. So like on the overture, you know the theme, it's like be dum like that part.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. That's not on the overture, but they revisit it in later parts of the abridged version. But that part, it just kicks into Pete's bass, rumbling bass line that kind of picks up the pace of the album. So it's just little stuff like that. Well, not even little stuff. I mean, it does change the vibe of the album completely. Actually, I think. I
agree.
I have high respect for the abridged version. I think Neil was like, he felt that he's with his solo projects he's always wanted to do more and more, and on this one he's like, I think we have too much music, and so he just edited a bunch of stuff. And then they were like, which one should we release? And I think Mike Portnoy had just said, why don't we just do both of them? And they're like, sure. And so they said that Roina kind of...
Ever the diplomat.
Yeah, exactly. Roina just kind of guided the extended version, and Neil did the abridged version. And, of course, they had input from the other two guys. But I think they were kind of split down the middle from what they said, that half of the group wanted to do the shorter one and half the group wanted to do the longer one. And I personally like that they're both, and to me, they're not completely different albums, because it's a lot of the same music, but it does have a completely different vibe across the albums. I think Neil's tends to be, like I said, a bit more sensitive and lyrically driven, but then Roina's has kind of got that, again, comforting feeling, and a lot of the great guitar work is on that, and I definitely prefer the extended version, but I wouldn't sleep on the abridged version.
Yeah, I A-B'd them twice this week, actually, which is just a crazy amount of music in retrospect. And I just vastly prefer the Forevermore version.
Yeah, Anthony, you need to listen to the abridged version. I'm curious what you think about it. I imagine that you will come away with the same view that the extended version is better, but I'm curious what you think about the abridged version.
Yeah, just like having two versions, just like for some reason, just hits some neurosis of mine, and I don't like it. So like I felt like I had to just pick one and never listen to the other one, but I should definitely listen to this shorter
don't sell yourself short. I think there's a lot of goodness in both of them. There's that moment though, one of my favorite moments I think across the whole discography, and I'm only mentioning this now because I had just finished listening to it like an hour or so ago. But there's this moment in I think the track "Light in the Darkness" where that like main riff, that theme, it's like da na na da na da da. That part comes back in at the end of that track. It's like I said, where they just are masters of bringing you back to the beginning of what they. And yeah, I felt that it lit up every nerve in my body when I heard it, and it just clicked. The album just clicked for me because I was lukewarm on it when it first came out, and was like, it's really good, but I don't think it holds a candle. And I think it puts it right up there with the rest of the stuff. They have not lost a step. They're complete creative geniuses. It is unfair.
I agree.
Yep.
Well, so I mean, I think it's obvious that we probably have less to say about this one compared to the other four, especially the first three. I mean, I just haven't had as much time to digest this one as the others. Mm-hmm. I think Royan is at the top of his game on this one. Neil kills it, and the flow is really there too. I think the flow is in the same vein as the Whirlwind. Like it just carries you smoothly through the whole thing for an hour and a half.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's the longest one.
That's a long fucking album, man, and I don't get lost at all.
No, yeah, there weren't many moments where I was like, how much time's left in this? I want to listen to something else. I just along for the ride. And I'm glad you mentioned the Whirlwind in this context, because I think this album compares most to the Whirlwind of all their. It's structured in a similar way. You don't have those giant epic tracks, which doesn't really bother me as much. But yeah.
Rainbow Sky is a great Neil Morris Beatles tribute.
Ooh,
He's
like,
especially the chorus is just like straight up John Lennon, Paul McCartney harmony.
Yep. I think Neil wanted to cut that from the album originally.
Yeah, because it is just
so.
it is like Beatles worship, and it's kind of twee, so I could maybe see why he didn't want it on there. Bully, I also think should have been cut because I don't think Bully is that great, and it's only like 2 minutes.
That's good.
I think it's all right. It's my least
favorite. It's a bit out of place.
Yeah,
it's a bit out of place, despite what I just said about the whole thing flowing.
I will say, yeah, just about this, like, it is noticeable, I guess. Well, and maybe this is just hindsight, but like listening to the extended version and then the abridged version in that way, I might just be reading it into my listening of it, but I can. It is maybe a little obvious to me where there's kind of cuts in the album, and it does sound a little less natural, I think, than the original extended version, and that's part of the reason why I prefer the extended version. But yeah, overall, I wouldn't write it off. It's still a really good listen. But at the end of the day, I guess you can look at it like, if I've got this one that's better and it's basically the same music, why wouldn't I just listen to the? And yeah, I think in general your time it might be better spent listening to it. But also, the other one's much more accessible. So if you don't have the stomach to listen to 90 minutes worth of music in one sitting, then definitely listen to the abridged version, and I think you'll enjoy it. It's not bad. I want to say that at least.
No, it's not. Of course, it's not bad. It's, I'm just not sure it was worth releasing as a separate item.
I think it's a cool Easter egg. More music to me is, yeah, it's fine. I'm fine with it.
I do hear that.
Owl Howl was also amazing, especially the instrumental.
Owl Howl is great. The intro to that track is so good. It just picks up the pace on it. Yeah, great energy on that track.
That outro, I think, actually is fairly jazz fusion. That's like probably the most experimental instrumental. It's not very experimental, but it's probably the most experimental instrumental passage on any Transatlantic song.
So what are those vocals towards the end of the album? It sounds like aliens.
Oh, so Roina.
Do you know what I'm talking about?
It's like the pygmy tribes, right? Like the chanting. Yeah.
Is that what that is?
Yes, I'm guessing that's what you're talking about. So Roina had used that on some Flower Kings releases, and he said he uses that because he wants to remind people of a world outside of Sweden or something. I don't know. It's a really kitschy take, I think. But
what are you talking about?
There's like these like tribal chants.
What track is it on? God damn.
I don't remember it on this album. What are some Flower King songs that it's on? I would remember that.
I actually don't know. I just read that's what he was relating that. I think it was it Can You Feel It, I think, or Belong?
I think it's Belong.
Yeah, I think so. At the beginning of Belong. There's like these.
It's at the end of Belong.
I think it's okay, maybe we're talking about different things then. I assumed you were talking about like it was like a sampled vocal, and it was kind of out there.
So there's a big keyboard ambient section, like ambient keyboards in the background. It sounds like you're drifting through space, and there's these voices that come in, and I don't know what the fuck it is.
I still listen to that again. I don't remember this. It's towards the end, you said?
I'm pretty sure it's at the end of Belong. It's towards the end of the album for sure.
Yeah. I think we're talking about the same thing. Maybe I just misplaced where it is. I mean, that's another thing when I'm listening to these. I don't really check the tracks. I just like. It's hard for me
the same way.
It's hard for me to talk about the individual tracks. Rainbow Sky makes like that one's obvious because it's much different than a lot of the other stuff on this album. But yeah, a lot of times it just runs into each other, and I don't really think about like, I'm on a different track. So we might be talking about the same thing, maybe we're not, but there is that. I assume that's what you're talking about.
I've listened to this album basically exclusively on vinyl, so like I have it in the chunks of the 6 sides because it's a triple album.
Oh right, yep.
Which kind of helps me digest it. It helped me digest it the first couple times.
Right. Yeah,
all right, fellas.
They're still at the top of their game, man. This is what a release in 2021, man.
I agree. I totally agree. Are we gonna rank these things?
Yeah, let's do it. You want me to go first so you guys
get
can
your
compose yourself?
fucking hot takes out of the way, man.
Are we going 5-1?
Yeah.
Okay. Number 5, Bridge Across Forever. Number 4, The Absolute Universe. Number 3, Kaleidoscope. Number 2, The Whirlwind. Number 1, SMPT.
Okay, that's not that crazy. I don't agree, but that's not that crazy. You didn't do the meme that I thought you were going to do.
I wasn't going to put The Whirlwind at the bottom.
Bridge Across Forever last it has me seething pretty good.
I put the caveat at the beginning that it's arbitrary. I said. But if I had to rank them, I thought about this, and it's changed a lot in the past week or so, and it will probably change tomorrow. But that's what I'll go on record saying. Bridge Across. It hurts me to do that. But yeah.
All right, Tone. I've had it.
Okay, number 5, Kaleidoscope, Absolute Universe, SMPT, Bridge Across Forever, Whirlwind.
So I'm torn. That's my first inkling. Is that exact same?
Go with it.
But I really, really, really like Absolute Universe.
Mm-hmm.
There's a part of me that would put that at number 3 above SMPT.
Because SMPT does have the Procol Harum cover.
Yeah, taken as albums, I think that's probably what I would do.
I could see myself doing it as well.
Yeah. But all of the above and My New World are very, very near and dear, which makes it tricky.
Yeah.
Yes,
I mean, I love My New World and all of
really
the above.
could go either way.
I do love My New World and all the above more than I will probably ever love anything on the Absolute Universe. So yes, Empty definitely comes before it for me.
Now, a lot of that just might have to do with repeated exposure. I mean, shit, I've been listening to that music since I was 16.
So I was talking about this earlier with someone else that I didn't have the pleasure of listening to this when I was younger, but at the same time, I had come into it with I don't want to say clear eyes. That makes it sound like a superiority thing. It's not like that. It's just I didn't have it filtered through past experience and stuff like that. So my perspective on this music is a little different because I don't have the history with the albums that you guys do. So I guess it's probably easier for me to kind of mix and match and I'm still trying to figure it out which ones are my favorites, I guess. And again, this is a really difficult task. And yesterday I think I said that I liked them in the order they were released. So I mean, I think this is all of this is rendered moot by the fact that I think they're all masterpieces, and ranking this is mostly just for fun.
I still think Kaleidoscope is on a different plane. The other 4 are pretty much all on the same level for me.
Yeah, like I said, Kaleidoscope's the black sheep, for sure.
The Whirlwind, in my opinion, is very much the best.
I would agree with that as well, yes.
So what are you rated? You didn't do them 5-1. What did you?
Yeah, I did.
Kaleidoscope at the
So
bottom.
5 is definitely Kaleidoscope. Then SMPT and Absolute Universe are kind of a toss-up. Then Bridge Across Forever, The Whirlwind at number 1.
Solid, yeah. I could probably agree with that, honestly. Yeah. Still would take Liquid Tension Experiment over Transatlantic.
Just fucking say it.
That is
That was
extreme and acute cringe.
Yeah, cringe and blue-pilled, my friend.
Oh, I love the seething that's going on. It was mostly a shit post. I mean, of course. I love LTE though, so I would hate to have to choose between these two discographies.
Oh, I do too, but it's like
not even close.
I love that. I love that stuff as much as I love this stuff.
Close.
I think, yeah.
It's hard to compare them. Like, the only thing they have in common is Mike Portnoy.
Yeah, I mean, 4-piece prog supergroups, both with Mike Portnoy. It's natural to compare.
They're doing totally different stuff, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, it's natural. I mean, I don't know. It's like, yeah, if someone's like, you can only listen to one discography or the other for the rest of your life. I mean, ultimately, it just comes down to what style of music you really like. But
yeah, I would. If that was the question, I would pick Transatlantic.
Yeah,
in a
respectable.
heartbeat.
Yeah, it would be a hard. It'd be a hard choice for me. I love all that stuff. I don't know how I'd pick between them.
Transatlantic and Dream Theater, I'd have a hard time.
Transatlantic, definitely.
I think Anthony. Yeah.
I think I would probably also still go Transatlantic, but I don't know.
Well, yeah, if we're talking about whole discographies, sure, but then we'd lose out on some really good albums from Dream Theater. So I don't know. That's a tough one. Luckily, we don't have to make these choices. We're imposing this on ourselves, so.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, this is who cares really?
Yeah, we get to enjoy the luxuries of the 21st century and listen to this shit whenever the fuck we want.
Yep.
It's good stuff.
Really is.
Pretty good. All right. Well, I think that wraps up the Transatlantic episode. Yeah, I'm going to probably be listening to this shit when I'm 85 years old, if I make it that long.
Probably going to listen to this shit tomorrow again.
I hear that, yeah.
Honestly.
How many more albums you think we'll get out of them?
You know...
I dare not make such a prediction.
Yeah, I don't like to say it. I was just thinking about Cruise to the Edge, and it's so expensive, and I really want to go, and I'm like, one day I'm going to go, but then I'm thinking, like, these guys are really old, so I don't know how much longer we'll be, like, have these titans of prog around to...
Fuck, they're not really
They're not really old.
I mean, they're getting up there.
Not really.
Portnoy's in his 50s.
Oh, yeah.
Runa's the oldest. Runa and Pete are the two oldest, but they're not very old. They're both in their 60s.
I was looking at, like, bands like Leorma I don't know, just like...
Oh, yeah.
There'll always be groups to add. But I was just looking at the lineup in general, and I'm just saying, like, I need to start doing this stuff now because eventually there'll be a time where I'll be able to see these guys, like, finally.
Yeah, I would absolutely fucking love to go to Cruise to the Edge.
Yeah.
Me too. Especially this year.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Royan is 65. Pete's 62. I think Neil Morris is...
It's probably almost 60.
So, yeah.
60-ish.
I mean, sorry. Yeah, I shouldn't say really old. I mean, I just meant to say, like, they're getting up there, and a lot of people will retire eventually. I mean, Tony Levin's in his 70s and killing fucking bass.
Yeah.
But,
true.
I don't know. Rush started to shut it down even before Neil Peart passed. So
Neil Peart had health problems.
Eventually, there'll come a time. There'll just come a time where a lot of this stuff we won't get to listen to it anymore. So, yeah, definitely go out and support this stuff and watch it while you can.
Carpe diem, as Mike Portnoy would say.